And I've been talking about and thinking about great things. I just got back from the men's retreat this weekend, and it was a great thing. A friend of mine, Charlie Patton, spoke, and he cursed. But then he said something about Jesus, and it was good, okay? And it was a great thing. We had a great time doing that. And I'm just thinking about all the great things, because sometimes life gets hard, and you have to remember these great things. And these are just random great things that are coming to me as I speak to you now. But I thought the day my son jumped off the roof into the pool naked, I thought that was a great thing. Now, my wife did not think it was a great thing, but I just said, I don't know what that's about, but that's a great thing. That's awesome. That was incredible. And I applauded. And then when my wife came out angry, I acted mad and totally fooled her. And that, too, was a great thing. I just thought, that's a great thing. And I was winking, and my son said, "Don't you ever. First of all, jumping off the roof is dangerous. And then being naked is a crime of some kind. And we got neighbors, and I'm the pastor. Don't ever do that again." That was awesome, man. God, I want to do that so bad. And it's a great thing that happened. You know, we built a fire pit, and sitting around the fire pit roasting marshmallows is a great thing. It really is. And I like to take a marshmallow that's on fire and fling it at one of my boys. That's a great thing, man, because it very rarely hurts. But when it does, it just sticks and burns, and you can't get... It's an incredible thing. It's a great thing, actually. It really, really is a great thing. When my wife opens a present and cries, it's a great thing. It's so self-fulfilling. It's so fulfilling for me. I just thought, I've done something right. Of all the stupid things I do and all the mistakes I make in my marriage, that's a great thing. That right there, her crying over whatever that is a great thing. And I was just thinking about, we all love these great things, but oftentimes we have to identify them. We have to point to them. We have to say, that right there, that's a great thing. That's it, right there. Because we have screwed up the word great so much, everything's great, and we've got to give our children and ourselves a better definition of what really is great. And there are certain things that are great, and there are certain things that are okay, and there are certain things that are not great at all, right? But we've got to be able to say, that's a great thing, right there. I want that. That's a great thing. I want to experience that. And it's a discipline almost in our life today, because we have so many things coming at us with the internet and TV and all kinds of things going on. And we just everything's kind of merging together in our lives, and we're so hard to entertain. We're so hard to keep our attention that from time to time, we've just got to look at stuff and say it out loud. That's a great thing. That right there. That is an awesome thing. Just incredible. I saw a commercial on the television. I was going to show it to you, but my wife wouldn't let me. But that commercial where a guy gets hit in the chest with a dart, have you seen this? That is a great thing. I don't know why I think that's funny, but it is. That's my point. So we're going to be talking about, I say all that to say this, a new series called Great Things. And what I'm hoping to do over the next few weeks is point out some great things about God. Because here's the thing, God is such an abstraction and such a sort of a spiritual thing that we lose track of his personhood, and we lose track of his actions and his characters, and we lose track of the benefit of knowing him in a personal way. And we've got to train ourselves when we look at Scripture, when we see our lives and we see God work in our lives. We've got to be able to point and say, that right there is a great thing about God. Right there. That's it. That's a great thing about God. And if we don't do that, you see, then we're going to wait for God to really wow us. And I think he's really wowing us, and we're missing it so oftentimes because we don't know a great thing from a good thing or an okay thing. And I want to point out some great things. So I thought, where in the Bible could I find some great things about God? And I was taken to the book of Psalm. And so Psalms is the book in the Old Testament. It's part of the poetic literature. And over the next few weeks, I'm going to be looking at a few random Psalms. Everybody has a few Psalms that they know, like Psalm 23, Psalm 51, those kind of things, Psalm 1. But I want to talk about just some random Psalms that I study on my own. And when I study it, at the end of the Psalm, I think, whoa, that's a great thing right there. And I hope we get there tonight before we run out of time. Okay, so here we go. Psalm chapter 4. So we're going to go there. I have no idea what page that is in your pew Bible, but you might want to find it. You can look at the table of contents. There's no special credit for knowing it by heart, okay? So just turn to Psalm chapter 4, okay? And would you mind handing me that water right there? I'm so sorry. I've got so hyped up, I've dried my mouth out, and I won't be able to speak. Perfect. Just throw it up here. There you go. Thank you so much. Psalm chapter 4, okay? Now, the book of Psalm, there's a lot of Psalms, like 100 and something, 20-something Psalm. And here's the deal. They're split up into 4 different types of Psalms or books. And the first section is 1 through 41, okay? Or is it 1 through 40? 1 through 40, 1 through 41. It really doesn't matter. And then these Psalms here that I'm going to read, actually Psalm chapter 3 and Psalm 4, are kind of Psalms that one's called a morning song, and I don't know why. One's called an evening song, and I read it and I can't remember. And these Psalms here are Psalms from King David, who is a famous character in the Old Testament. He was the king. He's the guy with Bathsheba. He's the guy with Goliath. You know, he's the guy, right? And so he wrote these Psalms, right? And in these Psalms, he's going to talk about some great things. But to really appreciate Psalm chapter 4, you have to appreciate a little bit of the background. And if you want to do some extracurricular activity and some extra credit work, you can go to the book of 2 Samuel. I think it's around chapter 16 or 18, and read the story of David and his son Absalom. And you get extra credit in heaven if you do this. Okay, I promise you, you do. And so read the story, because here's what's going on. King David was sitting on his throne in Jerusalem, running sort of God's people and following after God. He was a man after God's own heart. You've heard that thing about David? Well, it's true. And here's what happened to a good guy doing the right thing. His son, Absalom, conspired over a 4-year period of time to overthrow his dad. First, he kills another one of David's sons, and then he conspires to overthrow his dad by lying to the people and being a sympathetic ear to be elected a judge, and then he gets his army up and and then he just basically overthrows the palace. And David is warned by this, and David goes on the lam. He's just sort of on the run to save his life. Him and a few other people, and they just run away because Absalom, his son, is bent on killing him. And that's the background of the story of Psalm chapter 3 and 4. So you can imagine, in order to appreciate what we're about to read, you can imagine the heartache of a son overthrowing you, a son's betrayal. I mean, you can just imagine that, because most of us haven't experienced that, and teenage years don't count. So it's just kind of one of those deals, right? Also, you can understand about, here's a guy doing the right thing, losing his job, and he had to wonder at some point, where's God in all this, right? I thought good people got God's blessing, and why is these bad things happening to me? Because I'm following after God, and yet my son's rebelled. I've lost my job, I've lost my house, I've lost my city. I mean, where's God? I mean, that had to occur. It's not recorded, but it had to occur, okay? Then, not only did you do all that, you lost your sense of security. Your life is hanging in the balance. And it's like, if you take a wrong turn and your son Absalom's army catches you, they're going to cut you up. That's it. You're dead. I mean, so think about all the different types of losses that David must have experienced. And somewhere in this, he wrote this poem about God. Now, I understand poetry when I was growing up as rhyming words. You ever play those rhyming words with your children? I do it all the time. Like, I'll say, let's play the rhyme game, and I'll start with the word ball. And then for 3 days, we're doing things that rhyme with ball, like, would you like, but we have to do it in a sentence, like, would you like to go to the mall? No. Is it still fall? You get me? Well, it's funny at home. I don't know why it didn't work here, but you're kind of tall. It's that kind of thing. It just kind of goes on and on and on. You get it all? Okay, good. Oh, now I'm just going to have a stall. Okay, you see what I'm saying? This is what I just get trapped in this thing, and I always win, okay? It's a little raw, but here we go. This is not the kind of poem it is. The poem is not rhyming words. It's sort of a poetic in lines. The lines in these poems are to bring out, poetry, by the way, is a way, sort of a form of literature that brings a deeper emotional meaning to words, okay? And so it allows us to see, almost like a song, allows us to feel something instead of just know something. And that's what this does, and it does it with the way the words are structured, not that they rhyme. All right, here we go. So let me just read this, or we're just never going to get through it, okay? So here we go. Psalm chapter 4, verse 1. Here's what it says. Remember the background, because it's important. If you lose that, you're over. It's over. You're just like, oh, what's the big deal? So remember what's going on here. Here we go. Verse 1. Answer me when I call to you, O my righteous God. Give me relief from my distress. Be merciful to me and hear my prayer. So you can hear, because you know the background of what's going on in David's heart, is that he is crying out to God. And this idea of answer me, he's not demanding, he's not angry at God. He's not saying, now you better answer me. What he's saying is, hear my prayer, O God. But he's saying it with such passion that what he's saying here, the Hebrew language gives us indication that what he's saying here is, please answer me, because if you don't have an answer for me, I don't have an answer for this. You see the situation he's in? He's looking to God to be the answer, the person of God to be the answer. It's this passion crying out to God. And if you've lived long enough, and I've lived long enough, I think, you've come to a place in your life where you've been this way before God, if you believe in God at all. Because you're just thrown down by your inability to control your circumstances, and you are just fraught with disaster and tragedy and loss. And there is some point in your life where you just cry out to God, God, answer me. Where are you? I need you now. Come on. You see, it's that kind of deal. And he's saying this, and then he says something amazing here. He says, I call to you, O my righteous God. Now, here's something important. Write this down. This is good. He, in his distress, begins to proclaim the truth. That's very important. Because oftentimes what happens in our distress, we feel is true. Like, God has abandoned me. You ever felt that way? When you feel that way, and it feels so powerful and so passionate in your life that you believe it's true. But it's not true, because Jesus said, I will never leave you or forsake you. He says he'll stick with us and be closer than a brother. I mean, he's never going to leave us and forsake us, and yet it doesn't change the fact that oftentimes I feel that God has left me. And so the best thing that my counselor told me to do, by the way, is to begin to pray and proclaim the truth. And that's what David does in his distress. He says, God, you are right. That's what righteous means. Right. You're right. Your righteousness. Oh, my righteous God. And he's also saying something in here. It's kind of complicated in the Hebrew, but what he's saying here is my righteousness, in other words, my right standing with you is about you as well. Your right and my rightness is about you. It's not about me being right or acting right or doing right. It's about you. And we get a clue about that when he says, give me relief from my distress, be merciful to me. He's not, listen, this is key. We're going to get to this. It's really going to apply at some point. He's saying, be merciful to me. He is not saying, this is what I do, you owe me. You see the difference? You see, oftentimes when we're good boys and girls, we come to church on the weekends, we say oftentimes, and we do good things, and then we look at people who are not doing good things, and they're naughty, right? And then we say, why do they get all the breaks and I don't? I'm being good. Why doesn't God bless me? And I know you feel that way, even though it sounds very immature, because I feel that way sometimes. I know you do. Why? Here's what you say. Here's what I say. What did I do to deserve this? Come on, you've said that, right? Okay, good. I thought I was with a bunch of Christians there for a minute, and nothing worse than that. And it was like, wow. And so what happens is when we do that, we take on this victim mentality, and then we don't draw close to God. We don't depend on God to relieve us of our disaster and to help us in our problems because we're angry at God because he let this happen to me and I didn't deserve it. And that's what alienates us from God. So, in your distress, what's going to happen is if you'll, as a follower of God, proclaim the truth, even if you don't feel it's true, write it down, say it out loud. And that's what David did. He said, God, hear my prayer. I need you to answer me. You're the answer for my life, and I'm going to need you to be merciful for me because I don't deserve anything that I should get in terms of a break, but I need you to relieve me of my distress. That relieve me of my distress is the picture of somebody being pushed into a corner. So David felt trapped. You can see why, because he's running from his son who's going to kill him. He's lost everything. And he says, I've been pushed in this corner. I have nowhere to turn, God. Relieve me. This is really difficult for me, and I'm going to need you to be merciful, and I believe you are righteous, even though my circumstances are difficult, horrible, unfathomable what's happened to me. Even though all this has happened to me, David's saying the truth. You, God, are right. And most of us won't say this, but we feel this when things go wrong. When we say those things like, why this happened to me, we would never say this. I've never heard anybody say this, and I've never said it out loud, but we feel it. We say, God, you're doing me wrong. You're doing me wrong. Oh, woe is me. And I think part of it comes out of this place where we live, where we feel like that you should get all the breaks in the world and that life should revolve around you and me, and we just grow up feeling that way. And all of a sudden, when life doesn't work out that way, we blame our Heavenly Father. We say, why is this happening to me, right? And so the truth is, and this is what David's clinging to, is truth. And you can also see here that he's looking to God's and becoming humble before him. I'm depending on your mercy, God. I'm depending on who you are. Answer me. And then he goes on, this is just a brief thing, I hope. He goes on here and says, how long, O men, will you turn my glory into shame? And how long will you love delusions and seek false gods? He's talking to his enemies, to Absalom and their armies, and he's looking at, and here's what I want you to pick up here that's really key. He says, how long? How long are you, the ungodly, going to continue to act ungodly? How long are you going to worship false gods like yourself and money and all the other things and not follow God? How long? And now here's the thing I want you to catch. This is really important. You got to understand when somebody asks how long. I just realized this is not profound at all. You're going to say, duh. Here, when somebody asks how long, they don't know how long. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Yeah. Here's what I mean. All of us can endure pain for a season if we know when it's going to end. But if we don't know how long this thing's going to go on, we fatigue quite quickly, and we wonder how long can we stand under this kind of distress. And so David was asking, how long are you going to act that way? Which he's really also implying, how long am I going to suffer this way? Because he didn't know how long it was going to go on. There was no time frame involved in it. You just don't know how long trouble's going to stay. And sometimes it goes on forever and ever and ever. This went on for years, by the way. So when you say how long, you don't know how long. It just goes on and on and on. And that's a key component of being desperate. It's a key component of being despairing, of being depressed, because there's no relief in sight. It's like your kids in the car, right? You're driving, you're going to Dallas. We've gone to Dallas 5,000 times up 45, right? And undoubtedly, and my kids are old and smart now, right? They'll say, how long? How much longer, Dad? Are we almost there yet? Get a map, you know? I want you to get that iPhone out and Google it and figure out where you are. You've got a global positioning satellite in your pocket, so figure out how long. But I don't say that. I say, just for a few minutes, dear, and then we'll be there. And then when my wife gets out of the car, I do the iPhone thing. And so it's that idea of if I knew how long, I knew how long I'd have to be under this deal, okay? Then, look at this. He says, know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord will hear when I call to him. And the implication there, and we really got to move on, is David is seeking God. So he's got this, I'm going to make up a word, unpeace. I know it's not a real word, but I like it. Okay? Try to use it in a sentence this week. And if people call you on it, say, no, I'm hearing it everywhere now. It's a new word. Just use it, unpeace. Say it together. Ready? Unpeace. So that's what he's experiencing, this unpeace. I know there's a better word for that, but I like that word, unpeace. I'm going to go with punctuation marks next week, but tonight it's words, unpeace. So David's experiencing this unpeace, and he does a couple of important things. You should really know how to do this. One is he starts proclaiming the truth, and he begins to look to God for answers. And then two, when he doesn't know how long this is going to go on, what does he do? He begins to look to God for this answer by pursuing God. He's not passive, waiting for God to fix his problems. He's pursuing God. I call upon the Lord. I'm praying. I'm searching. I'm hoping. I'm exercising my faith. I'm looking to God. And it's an active, strategic thing. It's not a passive, well, woe is me. When this happens, when God shows favor, I guess we'll get out of this. It is I'm taking responsibility for my situation, and I'm going to ask God to act, and I'm going to depend on God, right? Okay, this go on. And then it says this. Then it says, offer, verse 5, offer right sacrifices and trust in the Lord. So he's giving direction, but proclaiming his position at the same time. He's saying, look, if you're in a bad place, a place of unpeace, then what you need to do is ask God for the answer, that he is the answer, and you need to proclaim the truth, and then you need to come to a place where you seek him, pursue him, and Jesus said the same thing, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened for you. You recognize that? And then what he says here is he says, trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord, okay? And that's in contrast to the idea that you can trust yourself. And it's also in contrast to the idea that you can trust your circumstances. You can't trust the stock market. You can't trust your employer. You can't trust anything that's going to make you happy, but you can trust in the Lord. You see, and that's what he's asking us to do. He's going, your trust, your hope. Listen, this is hard. This is really hard because my life is going pretty good right now, and I'm not in distress because my kids are behaving. It's a beautiful thing, but it won't last. And so I know I don't have no credibility right now, but I've had some tough times this last year, and I'm telling you, this thing is so true that if you're going to see God work in the midst of your dire circumstances, you're going to have to trust in the Lord, not that your circumstances are going to get better. That was so hard to say. Thank you. And aren't we just banking on the idea that God is the holy deliverer of good things and our circumstances are going to get better? Isn't that what I'm trusting really about? Isn't that, I'm not trusting God. I'm trusting God will make my life better. That's different. You see the subtlety? Because you look confused. It's that kind of thing, and you gotta be aware of what you're doing here. And when David says trust in the Lord, he is not saying your life's going to get better. Oh, you should really find another church, because there are so many churches that will tell you if you trust in God, He's going to make you rich. I just don't have that Bible. Anyway, so this is the deal. It says, look, trust in the Lord. Okay. And then he says, many are asking who can show us any good. Like, who could possibly help us here? And then again, he turns this idea of trusting in the Lord around, and he says, let the light of your face shine upon us, O Lord. So he answers the question, who's going to help us? God, if your light doesn't shine on us, we're done. And then the great thing, and I promise I'm finishing. You have filled my heart with greater joy than when their grain and new wine abound. That's a great thing. Right there. Did you miss it? Because you don't look as excited as I am. Do you hear what he... Now, remember his background. His son killed another son and took 4 years to overthrow him, which meant 4 years of manipulation and lies from your son. And then your son marches in, even after you showed him great grace after killing your other son, another son, and takes over. And then he loses everything. And some of you know that, about that, because you've been in the construction business or in the oil business or some other business. And then he says this amazing thing. He says, God, that's the you, by the way. God, you have filled my heart with greater joy. And then he gives a contrast. Let me add my own words. I like doing that. Greater joy than when life abounded in good stuff. You made my heart filled with joy greater than the times when I had the new car and the wine cellar and all the food I could eat, and I could party and charge it and pay for it, and I could have all the things in life I wanted. My life is richer, better, more joyful now when I'm running for my life because of who? Because of you. And you have filled my heart with joy. And because you have filled my heart with joy, I don't need my circumstances to get a lot better to have a good life. Now that, listen, I have to say this with just a little bit of disclaimer. That does not discount the hard part of life you're in. I'm not saying ignore it or have a Jesus rally so you'll not think about it. I'm just saying that God can be so real to you in a personal relationship that all your difficulty pales in comparison to the joy you have in knowing Him personally. Here's another thing I have to say that's hard. I don't tell the people on Sunday this stuff, by the way. No. On Sunday, I sing Kumbaya and I do a little dance in a tight. Man, it's awful, actually. It's just terrible. I would not come to church here on Sunday. But you guys are good listeners. So what he's saying here, and this is the deal, and I promise you, I know it's hard. I know, I'm not spiritualizing this. I've cried and cried and cried. Over my children, over my future, over my life, over my marriage. I'm telling you, I get it. I understand. I'm not saying Jesus is the answer to all your problems. I'm just saying that in this world, you're going to have trouble. Welcome to the world. And God didn't promise any of us that His job is to make your life great. But He did promise that if you'd put Him at the center of your life, you'd recognize Him as great. Do you see how that works? And can you give me that water, please? It's empty. How about that water right there? I tell you, I just got excited. Thanks, Dean. Did you steal that from the cafe? Great. And so here's the thing. I'm sorry. Here's the thing. I just had so many meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting with people. And I've been this person, so I'm not throwing a stone yet, but I probably will, that says, God owes me something. And the bad news is God owes you nothing. That's why David said, be merciful to me because you don't owe me anything. I'm counting on mercy. I'm not counting on a favor. I'm not counting on the fact that you owe me, God. I'm counting on your character as a merciful, loving God to be that to me in my distress. I'm counting on you. I'm going to make a point. I'm counting on you because I can't count on my circumstances. And we pray. I pray. And listen, you should pray this way. I pray this way. God, help my circumstances. We should all pray that way. And yet, but God is, sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. It doesn't change who he is. You see how that works? And somehow, and this is where I throw the rock, somehow, when God doesn't fix what you need him to fix, you're like a little middle school girl who does this and walks to her room. And God's sitting there going, I thought we were talking. Well, if you're not going to fix my problems, God, what good are you? And I know you'd never say that, but come on. You have felt it. I felt it. You see, and when we feel that, what we're saying is, this is hard. Listen, I am so hard on you guys. Listen, this is real hard. We're saying, I'm entitled. And you're not. If you got what you deserved, you'd be dead. You'd be fried up on some sort of shish kebab in heaven, and they'd send you to hell, and you got what you deserve. Don't ever pray, Lord, give me what I deserve. But I do pray that my children will ask me for that. I just want what I deserve. Are you serious? Because you don't have a job. You don't deserve anything. This is great. We understand that in that relationship, but somehow we've missed it in this one. Are you with me? So David, I'm going to get to the great thing, and here's the great thing. Your life can be filled with joy even when your circumstances are crushing you. It's sort of a spiritual scandal. It's a tension that we don't get. It's not a rational thought. And the reason it's not rational for us is because we grew up in a place that said life is good when things are good. And if we grew up really just about anywhere else in the world, we would not have that problem. But we live in this place, and in this world, what we think is life's good when I got stuff, and life stinks when I don't have stuff. You see, and God says, I'm the same when you're rich or poor. I love you the same. So I want to give you a joy better than the times you have new grain and new wine. I want to give you a life that allows you to rise above your circumstances. And I believe, even though I don't know how to quite do that, and I'm struggling right along with you, I think that's a great thing. Because I think it's possible. In fact, I've experienced it. It's rare, but I have. It's fleeting, but it's there. It's becoming more constant, but I haven't conquered this yet. But I know it's there. And then, here's another great thing. David says, I will lie down and sleep in peace. Man, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. Now, peace is a great thing. It's a great thing. And the deception, if you're not careful, is I'll have peace when my circumstances are better. And the truth is, when your circumstances are better, you'll forget your need for peace, but you still won't have it. Because peace comes from God, not from your circumstances. Your circumstances has an influence on your outside that sometimes makes it to the inside. But peace is from God, and it starts on the inside and always makes it to the outside. It's totally separate. You see, it's completely different. And having peace that in the middle of your son's betrayal and you losing your job and you being on the run and you about to lose your life potentially are able to say, I will sleep tonight because God's given me peace. That's a great thing. That is a great thing. And then he says this, and I promise I'll be done. He says, you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. You know what that implies? Having the throne back, that doesn't cause me to dwell in safety. That seems to come and go. I thought it was pretty secure. How many of you said that about your job? I thought it was pretty secure, and then 2008 happened. Then he says, I'm going to get smarter and never put myself in this situation again. That's going to give me safety. No, he didn't say that. He says, you alone, God. Not religion, not good works, not feeling good about your moral fortitude, the person of God in your life, him, that guy, he's the only one that can provide safety for you. And your circumstances will never do it. And when we feel secure in our circumstances, and that's a good thing, but not a great thing, beware, your circumstances will change. Always. So we're deceived into believing that my safety and security is going to come when this happens, that happens, and the other thing happens, and then we're Christians, so we're going to ask God to work my plan to make all those things happen so that I can feel safety and security and peace and sleep at night. And God probably, I can't speak for God on this, will not answer your answer your prayers because he doesn't want to be replaced by your good fortune. He wants to be your safety. He wants to be your security. He wants to be your peace. That's what he wants to be. And so when David says, my joy in the midst of my trial, boy, I hope I figure this out, is a great thing. It's better, in fact, than when I had plenty to eat and a roof over my head. I hope I figure that out. I really do. It's hard in this culture. And then he says, I lay down and sleep at night and have peace because you alone, God, nothing else, not me, nothing else, you alone are my safety. Peace is a great thing. We need peace, right? You need that? We all need that. We all desperately, desperately need that. And I'm just here to tell you the bad news. It's not going to come, or at least it's not going to be lasting, because your circumstances get better. It's only going to come because you trust in the Lord, because you seek after him, because you stand on the truth, no matter how you feel. And you experience something eternal and spiritual and supernatural in the midst of a storm in your life. That is a great thing. It is an awesome thing. It's a real thing. And I'll say this because I feel a little paranoid. When David's son, Absalom, was killed, and the circumstances changed, I thought this was amazing. David wept over his son. Wept and wept and wept over the son that betrayed him, over the son that killed his other son, over the son that deceived him. He wept. So I'm telling you, this is hard. And I'm not saying that when you got Jesus, you don't got any problems because you got Jesus. That is creepy. Okay? But what I'm saying is when life is hard and you feel like you're in a corner, God is all you really need if you'll depend on him, and he will relieve your stress, but he might not relieve your circumstances. I've said too much. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for being that to me, for being that available to all of us. And so often we just want you to work like a genie, making our life better as we describe it. That's not following you at all. That is just doing our own thing, hoping you'll bless us so we'll have the definition of a good life that somebody in the United States wrote for us. And what we want, I think, at least in theory, I'm not sure I want this. I think I do. We want the good life that you define because you created it. So that's scary because the only good life we know is the one defined by the world we live in and the culture specifically we live in. And yet the good life that you describe has people who have their heart tuned toward you going through incredible trouble that most of us will never see. And yet we see in David's life here, God, that the joy can fill our hearts even at a greater level and be more real to us even when life is tough, to a greater level than when life was good, so to speak. So I just pray we as a church would figure this out and encourage each other as we're going through each other's trouble to be there for each other, to encourage one another, to comfort one another, to pray for one another, and hope and pray that our circumstances do change because we're weak. But in the middle of all that, may we find you in a powerful way. And we pray this in Jesus' name, amen.